So hello, it's the 8th or 9th of December. I'm having a real hard time keeping track because I haven't had to look at I think it's the 9th. And 10, 11, 12. No, it's the 8th. So it's Sunday the 8th of December. We're 4 days away from the UK general election, and probably the same amount of time before we find out President Trump's impeachment will go forward, which is kind of amazing if that goes off. And to be honest, I don't have a lot of faith in the outcome of the UK general election, which is depressing. And I'm trying to overcome the weird little knot of rage where, you know, the UK gets a chance at being one of those countries like, you know, Norway or Sweden or Finland, where they've got like really good social care services and stuff like that. I'd really like to think that the government wants to move forward with helping people out, especially in this era of massive uncertainty. And then you got the environmental issues. Had all sorts of interesting weather all around the world, most notably, given that I go on about people trying to escape to somewhere like New Zealand. There were major floods in New Zealand over the weekend. Australia's in the grip of a heat wave and has got quite a lot of forest fires, which for a desert country is bad, because, you know, the vast amount of Australia is desert. You've got the Amazon rainforest being deliberately set on fire. You know, all kinds of stuff, all kinds of things, all kinds of bad things going on. And it would have been nice to have some good news for you, but I've got a horrible suspicion that the Conservatives are going to win by a very slim margin, or just enough for there to be a hung parliament again. You may have seen, quite a lot of people have seen, it's actually one of the most watched videos in the recent weeks. Page 48 of the Conservative document, which has all kinds of dystopian interpretations open to it. And yes, you could say that's an interpretation, but if they didn't want to be misinterpreted, they're smart people, they could have worded it a bit more tactically so as not to alarm people. But I don't think anybody that's likely to vote for them has read as far as page 48 of their manifesto. So make of that what you will, but it leaves me in a very depressed state. Unless all the young people in the UK suddenly vote for a brighter future, which could happen. You know, all the people in further education, everybody makes a 5-minute trip to their nearest polling station, and in the UK they're really not far away. It's not like you've got to drive to a polling station. All polling stations have to be within walking distance, unless you're unlucky and you live on an island or something like that. But they're generally within walking distance of wherever you live, and you'll be allocated to the nearest one to you. And in my case, I've really got no excuse to not vote rather, because it's on the same street as me. It's literally on my road. So I will definitely be voting. So yeah, let's have a look at the camera lens. You'll forgive me if I just tidy that up. So yes, so bad things are afoot. Which kind of, you know, when you're in that place of reasonable levels of hopelessness, I mean, I'm not depressed. I just think I'm going to be fairly pissed off. I've written off Friday the 13th of December in order to deal with the fallout. So one way or another, I'm going to be getting massively self-medicated on Friday. So don't expect me to make too much sense. It'll either be celebrating a Labour victory, or it will be drowning my sorrows, because those are the only two reactions. So that sort of, you know, gloom makes you ask the question, what's it all for? What's the point? Why am I doing this? Why am I using up my time to make videos that virtually no one watches? Although I do appreciate my audience. I like the fact that my audience they're worth having as an audience. Kind of rabid. And maybe even a few more audience members at some point in the near future. So yes, So, either way, for me, 2020 in a few weeks is going to be a year of action. I want to do stuff. And why might I do stuff like that? So, you could look at it in a number of ways. You know, most obvious way is like midlife crisis. I'm distracting myself from the crappy world I find myself in, which is pretty negative. But let's at least be honest. I'll at least be honest and list that as one of my motivating factors. I need to be doing something creative while all this crap is going down, and while I watch the people surrounding me, you know, moan about stuff that they've essentially voted for. Probably not so much in Manchester, but in other parts of the country. So yeah, there'll be lots of chirping of stupid people going, get Brexit done, get Brexit done, get Brexit done, they took our jobs. So yeah, so the gammon quotient is pretty high out there in the world. And part two, you know, when we started Rangers, we did stuff, you know, but we did stuff, but with no real major point. And, you know, we talked about ways around it, and we've come to use some of those ways around a lot of the surveillance that's easy and automatic. If somebody's going to follow our every movements, we need to make it slightly more difficult. So, yeah. And Harlequin's been studying social media as part of his degree course, which is really interesting. And it's made him even less enthused about social media and dealing with backlash on some of his comments and stuff like that. Which, to be fair, he's an acerbic soul, kind of like me. And he found this thing called freedombox, which is kind of like a social media internet hub that's actually secure, that you host at home. So you get like a little Raspberry Pi or a QB board and stuff like that, and you load up this freedombox, and it allows you to use an IRC and invite people to it, but it also secures all the data. So it's not going through a mega corporation that's selling your data, because they really are. All the mega corporations are watching trends and data and stuff like that, and you know, I'm sure it's the first government to roll up with the right size check that makes them feel like they've won the lottery. As soon as somebody turns up like that, of course they're going to sell the data, and they might not even mean to. You know, is it impossible for a government to form a shell corporation called International Health, a freely shareable information hub for scientists and stuff like that? That sounded like a really good idea until you found out it was actually owned by a government. You know, these things aren't outside the realms of possibility, especially given there's fairly good evidence now that, you know, the UK government, or the UK Conservative Party, and the UK and the American Republican Party has been given money by Russia. You know, Russia, where all the oligarchs live. You know, we've got newspapers that are owned by people that are billionaires that absolutely do not want things to change in any way that disadvantages them slightly or costs them any more money. And they own the newspapers. They have big ability to lean on, you know, media corporations like the BBC and Channel 4. I mean, Boris Johnson, because in the leaders, I stress that first word, the leaders' environment debate, where they expected all the party leaders to turn up, and he sent, you know, his deputy and his dad instead of turning up himself, when all the other leaders, well, apart from the Brexit party, declined to go on because they knew that next to almost anybody else's idea of what to do on the environment, they were seriously lacking. So yeah, and that you watch the news corporations fall over themselves to support the Conservative cause, but then, you know, dark mutterings about the revocation of Channel 4's licence to broadcast were made by the Conservative Party. And if that doesn't make you think of the Imperial March from Star Wars, you know, the dun 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 dun, I find your lack of faith disturbing, non-Boris Johnson supporter. And then when you add that to all the creepy shit in my last, the last video I uploaded, which was from a channel called A Different Bias, which is well worth watching. I think that poor guy is going to have a hard time in the next few days. And then you've got YouTube declaring that it will remove channels that are deemed, non-profitable, which is a catch-all phrase for anything we don't like without answering any questions about it or being called to task over it. Yeah, you get this, social media be going bye-bye in the way that you understand it now, unless your racist views are against the government. Because the government's all but going to make it legal for people to say, in my personal opinion, such and such a type of person is bad, allowing for basically people who are going to expound racist views. And although they're always in the minority, they think that the silence on behalf of everybody else that doesn't necessarily hold those views or is easily swayed is consent. So that's going to go for people of colour, for people of different religions, for women. Misogyny is going to be on the rise, and this all helps. Because people were starting to become fairly decent and laws were coming in and people were able to sort of like do the whole, this person is different from me, but that's no bad thing. There was from a fascist point of view, that's a dangerous trend. Because when the populace aren't divided, who knows what they're going to do if you carry out your nefarious plans and people see through it all at once. So yeah. So they want to extend the privilege of the people that already have it at the expense of the people that don't. Like privilege is a kind of like what do you call it? What's the word now? I'm getting old. You can tell I'm getting old. I can't remember the words for things. Scarcity. Like there's a scarcity factor for privilege. Instead of there's a basic expectation that people on planet Earth can have as far as somewhere to live and food to eat and education and, a relatively decent standard of living. So yes, it's all, hello, it's all going wrong. So in the face of it all going wrong, what are we doing? We're kind of learning how to make fire and cook food and be less dependent. But is that really helping anybody else? Is it really? The answer is probably no. We talk about a lot of this stuff, and this is going back to what are my responses? So I don't know. I mean, surely we can come up with something that actually helps. Even if we can't physically help people. So what to do? So the new project, which is going to include Project Morlock, I'm still well into that idea. I think there's going to be various playlists and various chunks of videos being released on a rolling basis, maybe Monday through Friday instead of 7 days a week. Because I've got to, although Urban Agurge is occasionally 7 days a week, it's work. Even though I'm just walking around with a camera, which I bought thanks to my lovely sponsors and patrons. When you've got that, so far we've got a voice, small as it is, and we need to start showing, or I need to start showing people how to do stuff. But what I'd like is for us to start showing people how to do stuff. Maybe it will just be an idea that it gives you a certain amount of independence from the cultural norms. That's why the new project, I think, is, even though I was a bit worried about using a K for culture, I think there needs to be, although technically it will still be part of Guy Debord's concept of the spectacle. And he was very big, and his, the people that were in the kind of school of thought that he was in were very big on going and doing instead of watching and sitting. Yes, there'll be going and doing, and yes, there'll be some watching and sitting, but what if we could create almost like a university course type thing, where you had modules and people could learn what they wanted and leave the rest? You know, what if we actually had someone of limited means building a thing that didn't have advantages that only existed for them? You know, what if we had technology tuition to show people how to and why they might install Linux as a start, and Firefox as opposed to Internet Explorer, and maybe Opera and using the VPN, or maybe trying to build a VPN, you know, or maybe trying to build our own chat rooms so that there are options other than Facebook. So imagine using your Opera VPN to connect to a freedombox chat room that was literally in someone's house. You know, it's not something that can be easily interrogated. Imagine you're showing someone how to use a cheap old whatchamacallit, a thin client. You know, what if you showed someone how to buy a 15 quid thin client, and using that 15 quid thin client they then create a freedom box of their own with their own website on it? You know, so that's like the digital getaway done on it. Then we teach a bit of bushcraft. We basically provide some kind of reading list and books that are reviewed. You know, give them a global overall picture, and then promote the crap out of it when people say stuff's bad. It's like, okay, well, here's a few books on how to run a revolution, here's some light science fiction reading, here are some reference books to have to hand, here is how you make yourself, your household, the people you care about more resilient, here's how to use a radio, here's how radio works. You know, here's how all these things that you can easily get right now that cost next to nothing. Here's how to be vegan. You know, here's how, you know, here is how you hurt big corporations back. Here is how you create kind of like an embargo, so that, you know, the people with the real money, like newspapers, corporations, governments, I mean, it's kind of like, you know, everybody's in the pocket of a billionaire somewhere. Everybody that's in power, apart from a few people. So it's like, you know, what if there was such a almost like a university course with modules and sections and things to have done, where the person that is, you know, wanting to be improved, not necessarily for a job set, but even then, you know, if you treated it like we have in this country, the Duke of Edinburgh Award, that kind of counts when someone's being employed. You know, maybe you could say, I undertook and was evaluated for, you know, all you got to do is take photos of you doing the thing or some video, and then somebody sends you a certificate. You know, we've all got graphic design skills. You know, we can all, if someone were to say do the course, there's got to be a way of providing a reference. Yeah, this person did all these cool things. You know, I've used the server, I've seen their website, I watched them survive on their own for a week. You know, they're capable. So yeah, so perhaps we need to start sharing that information to a wider audience. And that's the whole point of something like The Culture. And I was worried about using the K because of the whole clan thing, but it just needs to have that snap. You know, it needs to have that injection of, you know, look, this is like another layer. And it's kind of being kicked off by Harlequins talking about the freedom box. So, you know, and one of the things we were trying to talk, Sean Kennedy was talking about with cult. You know, if you can provide forums for the people that are good at stuff, like a bushcrafting forum, a tech forum, you know, even a gaming forum, even a book forum, where there is like an alternative media stroke academia. But in order to get that to work, in order for it to be as comprehensive as quickly as possible, I'm really going to need your help. You know, it's really going to have to be a group thing. So, yeah, you know, maybe we need to turn it into a kind of a business. Maybe we need to, while YouTube allows us to do it, accept ad revenue. Maybe we need to sort of make it Patreon sponsored and then work out some kind of profit sharing. You know, like you work out what the whole Patreon income for the culture is for a year or 3 months. Calculate the minutes that people have uploaded or the current minutes online of quality programming, you know, and divide that by the amount that's been received. So if you put in 1 3 month period, you know, maybe it needs to be one rate for the recent 3 months, because more people are going to watch more recent videos, and then one rate for everything prior to that 3 months, and then you know, we're just PayPaling chunks of cash to you if you've produced video. You know, get some book reviews up, you know, but book reviews that aren't like normal book reviews. You know, they're a review of a book, you know, oh, it was a great book, I read it in about a day and a half, I was totally gripped by it. And here are the things it teaches you, like a Heinlein book or an Orson Scott, not Orson Scott Card. Is it Orson Scott Card? I don't know, the guy that wrote Old Man's War, John Scalzi. What does it teach you? You know, is it a reference book? What does it hold? Why might a member of the culture or a ranger or a rant media bod, why might they want to read it? Why might they find it valuable? You know, maybe like a scavenger hunt across the internet to find temporarily available stuff for backup. You know, we've got the archive.org, we can upload stuff to that, but we've also, if we had like those freedom boxes, you know, what couldn't we do with 50 or 100 of those worldwide, with kill switches and scramblers, you know? You tell me. So I think, you know, 2020 needs to be the year of doing, and we need to do that thing that a lot of the American soldiers, particularly the paratroopers, did on D-Day. You know, literally cut our hair, get a new tattoo, stare into the future and go, we're going to fucking do something this year because things is dark. And we need artists and graphical people, and we need comics, and we need a magazine, and we need all sorts of stuff. I want to see pain come back, you know. I'm talking to you, Method. Wouldn't that be good? Like a print if you want it magazine. So, and I'd like to bring some rant people back. I'd love to interview Sean Kennedy via Discord or Skype. Let's do some cool shit this year. You know, people are doing cool stuff all the time, but there's, you know, we're not sharing it very well. We're sharing it in the Discord, and we need to do better than that. And I need to do better than that. So maybe I'm going to start ending these videos with, where am I going? Who's coming with me? Thanks for watching.